what's wild? Two of the healthiest populations in human history built their longevity on completely opposite foods. In Okinawa, people traditionally thrived on purple sweet potatoes, vegetables, and very little fat. Meanwhile, around the Mediterranean, longevity came soaked in olive oil, fatty fish, cheese, and wine. So here's the big question. If both diets created some of the longest living populations ever recorded, which one actually protects us better against the metabolic disaster of modern life? Because let's be honest, most of us aren't farming vegetables on a Japanese island or walking coastal villages in Greece anymore. We're sitting for 9 hours a day, stressed, sleep-deprived, overfed, under-muscled, and surrounded by ultra-processed convenience food. So today, we're not looking at these diets through a romantic blue zone lens. We're putting them into the real world of 2026. Which eating pattern actually stands up better against insulin resistance, inflammation, obesity, brain fog, and metabolic syndrome today? And the answer is way more interesting than people think. Modern realities of longevity hotspots. Let's start with the biggest misconception. People think these populations were magically healthy because of one superfood. That's not what happened. Traditional Okinawan diets were built around nutrient density and caloric restraint. About 60% of calories came from purple sweet potatoes, but these weren't the sugary orange sweet potatoes most people know today. These were incredibly high in fiber and anthocyanins, the same antioxidant compounds found in blueberries. Meanwhile, Mediterranean populations built their meals around olive oil, fish, legumes, herbs, and slow social eating. One pattern was carb-heavy. The other was fat-heavy. And somehow, both worked. Why? Researchers from institutions like the Harvard T.H. Chan School of Public Health and the National Institutes of Health point out something fascinating. These diets contained what some nutrition scientists now call nutritional dark matter. Basically, thousands of bioactive compounds we still don't fully understand. Polyphenols, marine phytochemicals, fermentation metabolites, bitter compounds, prebiotic fibers. Before the digital age, people weren't just eating macronutrients. They were eating ecosystems. But here's the problem now. Globalization is crushing both traditions. Modern Okinawa actually has one of Japan's highest fast food consumption rates today. And Mediterranean countries are seeing rising obesity and diabetes as refined flour, seed oils, packaged snacks, and sugary drinks replace traditional foods. So when people say, the Mediterranean diet is healthy or the Okinawan diet is healthy, the real question is, which version? The ancestral version? Or the Uber Eats version? Because those are completely different metabolic realities. The glycemic battleground. Now let's talk blood sugar. This is where things get really interesting. At first glance, Okinawan eating should have caused glucose chaos. High-carb diet, sweet potatoes, rice. But it didn't. Why? Fiber structure. Traditional Okinawan meals slowed glucose absorption dramatically. Researchers from the University of the Ryukyus found that the native purple sweet potato had an unusually low glycemic impact compared to modern refined starches. That's because the carbs arrived packaged with resistant starch, fiber, and antioxidants. Modern diets stripped all that away. Now compare that to modern office worker eating. White bread at breakfast. Sugary coffee. Sitting all day. No muscle activity. That's basically a metabolic ambush. Now the Mediterranean approach attacks blood sugar differently. Not by lowering carbs dramatically, but by buffering the meal. Olive oil, fatty fish, nuts, and polyphenols slow digestion and improve insulin signaling. One fascinating 2025 review from researchers associated with the Mayo Clinic discussed how extra virgin olive oil polyphenols appear to reduce post-meal inflammatory glucose responses, especially after heavy meals. Even moderate red wine compounds like resveratrol may temporarily improve insulin sensitivity in some people. But here's the key point nobody talks about: in a sedentary 2026 lifestyle, movement matters more than carb percentage alone. And current clinical comparisons suggest Mediterranean-style eating may edge ahead for modern desk workers because its fat and polyphenol profile stabilizes appetite and glucose better in physically inactive populations, especially when paired with strength training. That's important, because most people today are not burning Okinawan-style carbohydrate intake through farming, walking, or manual labor anymore. The inflammation shield. Now let's move into the silent killer behind metabolic disease, chronic inflammation. And honestly, this is where both diets become incredibly powerful. Mediterranean diets bring omega-3 rich fish like sardines, anchovies, and mackerel into the picture. These fatty acids help regulate inflammatory signaling pathways. Meanwhile, Okinawan diets introduced something most Western diets barely touch: seaweed, bitter melon, turmeric, marine minerals, fucoxanthin-rich plants. These foods contain unique phytonutrients rarely found in processed modern diets. And today, that matters more than ever. Because we're now dealing with chronic exposure to pollutants, endocrine disruptors, microplastics, poor sleep, and psychological stress. Researchers from the World Health Organization and multiple environmental health institutes have increasingly linked these exposures to low-grade metabolic inflammation. Now here's where Okinawan culture adds something incredibly unique: Hara Hachi Bu. Eating until you're only 80% full. Simple idea. Massive metabolic consequences. Caloric moderation activates pathways connected to autophagy, your body's internal cellular cleanup process. Think of it like deleting corrupted files from a computer. Research connected to longevity science at the National Institute on Aging has repeatedly explored how mild caloric restriction may support cellular repair and metabolic resilience. And honestly, that might be one of the biggest missing pieces in modern nutrition. Not just what we eat, but how much, and how often we stop eating before overload. Microbiome and mental metabolic health. Now this next part is huge. Because metabolism is no longer just about body fat. It's about the brain too. Scientists are now deeply focused on the gut-brain axis. And both diets shape the microbiome in completely different ways. Traditional Okinawan diets relied heavily on fermented soy foods. Things like miso and natto created a gut environment rich in beneficial bacterial diversity. Mediterranean cultures traditionally leaned more toward fermented dairy like yogurt and kefir. Different microbes, different metabolites, different immune responses. And according to research from institutions including Stanford University and King's College London, microbial diversity may be one of the strongest predictors of metabolic resilience, especially against anxiety, depression, obesity, and insulin resistance. That's critical in 2026 because metabolic dysfunction and mental health problems are increasingly overlapping. People are inflamed, stressed, sleep-deprived, isolated, and overfed all at the same time. Traditional diets accidentally protected against this. Not because they were trendy, but because they rotated seasonal fibers constantly. See vegetables, wild herbs, legumes, root vegetables, fermented foods. This constant diversity trained the microbiome like a healthy ecosystem. Modern diets do the opposite. Same processed foods every day. Same emulsifiers. Same additives. Same artificial flavor systems. And then we wonder why gut health collapses after repeated antibiotic exposure. Your microbiome needs ecological diversity the same way forests do. That's something ancient cultures understood without ever sequencing a single bacterium. The final metabolic verdict. So, which diet actually wins? The Mediterranean diet? Or the Okinawan diet? Honestly, the most metabolically protective pattern in 2026 is probably a hybrid of both. Here's why. The Mediterranean model may currently offer stronger cardiovascular and glucose stability advantages for sedentary modern lifestyles. Especially because olive oil, fatty fish, legumes, and polyphenols work incredibly well against insulin resistance and inflammation. But Okinawan culture contributes something modern nutrition desperately lacks: caloric restraint, fiber density, meal simplicity, and intentional eating behavior. That combination is metabolic gold. So the ideal modern blueprint probably looks something like this: Mediterranean fats, Okinawan portion control, high fiber root vegetables, fatty fish, seaweed, fermented foods, olive oil, beans, seasonal diversity, and fewer ultra-processed calories. Now the good news is, modern technology can actually help us apply these ancient principles. Smart air fryers reduce oxidized cooking oils. Continuous glucose monitors help personalize carb tolerance. Meal prep apps improve consistency. Smart kitchen scales can quietly reinforce portion awareness without obsessive dieting. And honestly, the biggest lesson from both cultures isn't about a single food. It's about metabolic rhythm, slow eating, natural movement, social meals, fiber-rich whole foods, and avoiding constant caloric overload. If we're talking pure metabolic protection against the syndrome crisis of the mid-2020s, the Mediterranean framework probably has a slight edge for today's average sedentary adult. But without the Okinawan discipline around quantity and simplicity, even Mediterranean eating can fail in the modern world. And that's the real takeaway. Longevity wasn't built from one magical ingredient. It was built from daily metabolic habits repeated for decades. And that's still true today. So now I want to hear from you. If you had to follow one approach for the next 10 years, would you choose Mediterranean, Okinawan, or a hybrid of both? Drop your answer in the comments. And if you enjoyed this breakdown, subscribe, because next week we're looking into more science-backed nutrition, longevity, and metabolic health content.